When I was younger and watching Pretty Little Liars, I remember that I really liked a lot of couples on the show, and the romance had some of the best highlights. But because Ezria was so unhealthy, showcasing a teacher-student relationship, it really made the other relationships on the show look extra good just by comparison. But recently, I was rewatching some scenes and I realized that actually some of the relationships on that show aren't all great, or at the very least they played into some pretty unhealthy tropes that we often see in the media in terms of how the couples related to each other. Even, and this may surprise you, good couples like Spoby and Emison, and a lot of very weird or not healthy behavior was framed as cute and romantic and not really addressed properly. But it was hard to see that at the time because I was so distracted by how obviously problematic Arya and Ezra were. But I thought it would be very interesting today to do a little bit of an analysis of the couples in the show, which couple I thought was the most healthy and which was not. So this is a little continuation of my Pretty Little Liars series, which I'm sure a lot of you guys found me through. It's amassed millions of views, and I'll link the playlist down in the description. They are some of my favorite videos. I just have such a soft spot for this show, and with a show this big with that many seasons, there's always more to analyze. This was a highly requested topic to discuss the relationships more and who I thought was the worst, who I thought was the best, and I thought I had said all there was to be said about this show, but there really is an insane amount to dissect here. Like, honestly, it should win an award. Like, you could write legitimately your college thesis on it. So if you guys are happy to be back for this series, then let me know, and also subscribe. I know a lot of you guys who watch my videos are not subscribed, so what are you doing? Join the family, and then you get to see all the videos, you get all the notifications. And it's my birthday today, so I really wanted to do something cute and fun and a little bit different. And I don't care if it's my birthday, I'm having a video up for you guys. Like, I cannot break my consistency. I've been doing so well. So the biggest issue that arises when you look at Pretty Little Liars as a whole is the writers' belief that your first love means they're your only love. And I think it kind of shaded or warped their judgment a bit. And I like a lot of the relationships in this show. Spencer and Toby's was very well developed. Hannah and Caleb's was adorable, and they legitimately have so many great moments. But I just feel like this was one of the reasons I wanted to make this video. I was just a little bit naive, I suppose. Like, I just overlooked so many things, and now I look back on it, I'm like, wait, that wasn't actually that romantic. And I can't even explain why, because normally I'm good at identifying this stuff. What's crazy is a lot of the shippers on the show are also really defensive about this as well. So even if you do criticize or make a judgment, and they're like, oh my god, no, Spoby forever, and they don't really listen when you try to explain why you didn't like something. The writers knew it was imbalanced because they knew Ezria was so inherently wrong, so they do all these crazy mental gymnastics to try and make the other love interests look bad or have their fair share of bad moments too, so Ezra doesn't overshadow everyone too badly. So at points it was definitely like they were almost sabotaging a bit the love interests to balance the playing field, I suppose. And I'm not even being nitpicky here, I'm just being balanced. Like, I'm just giving a more well-rounded view of these relationships that at the time I thought were basically perfect, and I didn't really analyze or look critically at, I guess because it's fun and it's a show and who really cares anyway. It's not like it was particularly damaging. But let's start off with the ship Haleb. So Hannah and Caleb, which is probably, I would argue, the best or most healthy relationship and the most effectively developed overall. These guys had a lot of really sexy, great moments. The shower scene, anyone? Still obsessed, never getting over that. Really cute. I get why they're so loved, and the popular girl and outcast trope is really effective. This idea of Hannah being all popular and having all these friends and falling for this guy who no one really gets or likes, and she kind of doesn't know how to include him or if her mum would judge him. Like, it was really well written. But looking back at season 1, I was like, wait, the way their relationship started was not great. Like, Haleb was basically sponging off Hannah, eating her cereal, living in her house because he had nowhere else to go. And I understand he was in a tricky situation, but it was forcing her to lie to her mum about it. At the time, she wasn't a grown adult. She's still a teenager going to school. She's got this teenage boy living in the house, eating their food. And she hasn't really had like a super serious relationship before, aside from Sean, but that wasn't really that serious. She's very young. Like, imagine how her mum would have felt knowing that Hannah was lying to her. And, you know, it's her house too. And Hannah's letting this strange boy stay there. And it kind of causes a rift between the two of them. I don't know why I didn't think deeper into this, but I guess at the time I thought it was just cute and kind of hot, and so I rolled with it. He was spying on her for Jenna, and so his intentions weren't pure, and they literally slept together. You know, it was her first time with a guy, and he had been lying to her the whole time. He wasn't really being upfront about his intentions and why he was there. And then when she found out, she was obviously devastated. But then somehow they managed to get over that, which many girls never would. That would be the end of it for them. But he could be kind of controlling of her sometimes. Like, overall, their relationship was really loving and affectionate, but especially her involvement with Mona, he didn't really seem to get why she was friends with Mona right up until the end, to the point that it wasn't really respecting the fact that Hannah can kind of make her own decisions. She's a grown adult, but he'd even put a tracking device in her car and she hadn't wanted him to, or he was telling her, you can't go to Radley to see Mona, and it just wasn't really allowing her the space to breathe and do her own thing. Now, this doesn't bother me quite so much with the whole tracker thing, because at some point in this show, everyone has followed everyone or spied on people because they don't trust people or tracked each other. So it seems a bit unfair to hate on Haleb for this when literally everyone has done it at some point, or the girls have overruled each other and like followed each other places to try and help. And he was trying to help, so I'm not going to be too critical with that one. But even in the finale, when they should be happy and we should be focusing on other things like the A plot, their communication skills are still really bad, and they seem to be snipping and snarking at each other a lot. And that's only after being married for a short period of time, like a year. I'm like, geez guys, if it's difficult now and you don't even have kids, I can't even imagine how hard it's going to be later down the line. Like, she's sort of whinging to him like, we didn't get a honeymoon. And I'm like, oh my God, Hannah, is everything all right? You guys okay? Do you need a cup of tea or something? And what really tarnished their relationship for good, in my view, was the Spencer thing, involving Spencer in this love triangle. They were doing really quite well as a couple overall, and I thought they just worked together and they had the right kind of chemistry and they made sense. But then you bring Spencer into the mix, and him even thinking it was okay to date his ex's best friend, and it's weird, it's too enmeshed, it's not appropriate. Her and Spencer aren't like kind of friends, they're best friends who have been through everything together. They have a lot of trauma bonding and also general friendship bonding. It's just, he could date any girl. Why Spencer? I don't care how cute him and Spencer were, it just was weird and it was too much. And he's saying, oh, if I ended up with Spencer it would have been a disaster. But literally a few weeks ago, you were at Spencer's doorstep crying, saying, please take me back. And Hannah was there listening to the entire thing. And now you're saying, oh, like, it's fine. Me and Spencer wouldn't have worked anyway. And then you go back to Hannah. But like, you cheat on Spencer with Hannah. The show frames it as it's okay that he goes back to Hannah and disrespects Spencer and treats her terribly because he was always meant to be with Hannah and they're star-crossed lovers. So therefore, it doesn't matter how badly he treated Spencer, how poor his communication was, how unlovable he made her feel, because it's all in the name of true love, because he just can't stay away from Hannah. And no, it's not okay. And at points he and Spencer were together and Hannah would be sat next to him and then just reach across and like cover his hand and Spencer would be there watching. That's not okay, Hannah. Hannah was acting like she had some kind of ownership over him because they used to date. No, you don't get to cool dibs like that. He was your high school sweetheart. You're adults now. He's in a new relationship with Spencer. You don't touch him. Imagine if someone touched your man in front of you with no shame. I don't care. Physical space, boundaries, it really ruined a lot of the Spencer Hannah friendship, and it was just really, really disappointing. And they were even getting a bit shaky earlier around like season 3 and 4 because they needed the actor to leave for this spin-off called Ravenswood or something, and so they needed to set up this supernatural storyline. But the issue was, at what cost? The cost was sacrificing the integrity of Hannah and Caleb's relationship, because he's effectively thinking that he's seeing ghosts or something and he's got to go explore this. But then he breaks up with her in the most kind of cutthroat of ways, basically leaves her. She's like, "Are you leaving me?" And he's like, "Oh yes, because I've got to go investigate the mystery of this ghost and help out this random bitch Miranda who I don't even know or care about." And it honestly looked awful because they were trying to intrigue us for a spin-off and show that he's got this past he needs to discover and the magic and all this. But the problem is that it makes him seem completely heartless and like he's just giving up and walking away from Hannah without an explanation that really makes sense. And then she still takes him back after that. And he's left her before, so this is kind of a thing where he just gives up and walks away and leaves her heartbroken. So he does that. Then in the future, he dates one of her best friends. And when they broke up before the time jump, it was because he was kind of giving her an ultimatum, like, choose between me or your work. And the whole thing was just really soured. He should be happy for her that she's following her dreams and pursuing her career, even if she's not making enough time for him. Like, it's just a bit silly. I don't know, it was just kind of a dumb reason to make them break up, especially because later in the future, after the time jump, she seemed genuinely happy with her fiance Jordan. But they intentionally don't flesh Jordan out and don't give him too good a personality, so that they don't really give us an opportunity to really root for her with another guy or see why she's with Jordan. But her thing with Jordan seemed like really strong and solid, so I was almost a bit disappointed when she ended things with him, because he seemed like a really good guy who would have really tried to make her happy. The next couple I want to discuss is Spencer and Toby. This was the one that surprised me the most, because when I was younger, I literally thought these two were perfection. Like, no issues, no criticisms, and now I do see that even though they're a great couple, there are problems there. In season 1, Toby is set up as this outcast who's misjudged, but the result is that they made him come across as really creepy because they were trying too hard to get us to suspect him of being or being this red herring, but then it made him literally seem like the scariest dude ever. He was trying to talk to Emily and explain to her a few things in Homecoming, and she was really scared. She thought he was dangerous, and rather than him just talking to her, he was like chasing her down the hallway, and she was screaming, and he just kept chasing after her and freaking her out. And it made him seem very, very menacing. Him and Spencer were only really good in, I'd say, season 1. They were at their best, season 1 and 2, because they both have dysfunctional family lives. They can both tell each other things, and he's a bit more calm and grounded, which also calms her down, and it was really sweet. So overall, do I like this couple? Yeah, I do. I think they're really cute. But there are a few things I want to point out that I never mentioned before in any of my videos because I just hadn't noticed. But in like season 2, I think it's episode 14, they want to go and stop and Spencer wants to go out to see the girls to do this plan, and Toby's trying to stop her from going. And it seems a bit inconsiderate, like she's doing what she can to try and stop like controlling her just isn't the best idea because she doesn't know what else to do, first of all. But also she's trying to leave and he keeps grabbing her arms, not just once, like, hey, stop, talk to me. It's like she's trying to leave and he's grabbing her and grabbing her multiple times, manhandling her a bit. And if she really wants to leave that badly, I feel like you should just let her go. The worst thing was when he joined the A-team. They were trying to pick between like Lucas, Paige, and they were like, okay, let's have Toby join the A-team. But they didn't want it to ruin the relationship between him and Spencer. So they tried to do this weird twist in it by saying, yes, he's on the A-team and he's doing objectively terrible things like trying to run Lucas over. But thing is, he's doing it to protect Spencer. So they wanted to have their cake and eat it too, and it doesn't work. They wanted a scary, shocking, emotional A reveal that would be like, what the fuck, which it was. It was really great. But then they also wanted to leave the door open to have Spencer and Toby get back together and get married and appeal to all the lover girls of the show. But that doesn't work. You've got to pick a side. You can't do both. He was pursuing a relationship with Spencer, let her have her first time with him, all the while actively lying to her, being a part of the A-team and doing really creepy shit. We don't know how much of the stuff he was doing. We don't know if he wrote steamy with Ren, steamy with me on the shower and locked her in that shower steam room. We don't know which of those things he did as A. How far really did he go? Like, to what extent was he involved in being a double agent? But then what made it even more ridiculous is they tried to rationalize it with this whole, okay, I did it, I joined the A-team, but I needed to get on the inside and I needed to help you and I did it to actually protect you. How is breaking her heart protecting her? But more importantly, if you were going to join the A-team, you could have at least found a way to let her know, rather than having her genuinely think that the man she loves has betrayed her to the ultimate degree and never loved her. And this wasn't just an issue in season 3. Everyone thinks this just happened with the A reveal. I don't know why I'm getting so angry. Calm down. It was happening in season 2. Never mind, I can't calm down. It was happening in season 2 as well. Because do you remember he started being all like moody and weird with Spencer, being like, oh, I just can't see you. And she had no idea what was going on. It was making her feel unlovable, like he wasn't interested. And then he revealed to her later that he was only pretending to hate her to protect her because of this weird plan he had. And then at the end of season 2, he's like, pretending to hate you was the hardest thing I've ever done. And she's like, oh, I love you, baby, and kisses him. And at the time I was like, oh, that's so sweet. Like, I knew he cared about her. What the could he not think of a single better way? Why? Like, he was giving her the cold shoulder. For what? And then you do it again in season 3 by letting her believe for so long that you're A and that you're dead after that. But it's because you're doing it to protect her? How is that protecting her? And Spencer was a total emotional wreck. She didn't want to tell her friends because she knew how upset they'd be, and she knew that Emily would try and prove that, you know, that wasn't the case and surely Toby's a good guy. So she was really bottling it up. But then she finds his body in the woods, but it's actually fake. Like, he's not actually dead. And then she's all upset thinking, oh my God, he's dead, because it is, in her mind, very convincing, even though she didn't check properly, but whatever. And he still doesn't let her know I'm alive. She's devastated. Then she has a mental breakdown and is institutionalized because she just snaps. And he still doesn't think to let her know that he's okay. I am so sick of him doing annoying things with the justification of I'm trying to protect her, like joining the police academy later in the show, when it's not actually serving her, it's just making things more complicated. And that was the show's way of trying to develop Toby further, to give him emotional depth, right? But actually, it didn't work in their favor. It made it worse. I think that their attempts to make him this multi-dimensional character actually worked against them. It didn't do the show any favors. In season 3, episode 24, we get this weak apology from him. It wasn't even really an apology. It's just like he starts crying, and apparently that's enough. But that does not excuse what he put her through as A, and she forgives him so fast. If he had found out something really useful, like if he found out who A was, or he really saved her in some way, and he had this incredible master plan, and he was like, Spencer, it's cool, like I got all this information about A, and like it's this whole system, and this is how it works, and you know, this is how they run things, and it genuinely helped her, then fine. Because he was a man with a plan and he delivered, and what more can we ask? He didn't do shit. The fact that he did so little is comical. Like, it's actually, if I wasn't so mad, I could laugh. Like the fact that he's like, oh, I'll be on the inside. Doing what, Toby? Then he decides later, of his own free will, I guess, to become a cop because he thinks that would help her. He'd get more power. But then it kind of goes to his head and he's not actually helping her or giving her insider information. And it's like, have you forgotten the reason you did this in the first place, bro? You said it was to protect her, and now you're actually a police officer. I don't remember a single time that him being a police officer really helped in some way or contributed something. And he's like, oh, Spencer, don't tell me too much because, you know, it might compensate my job. But it's like, if she can't even tell you things or you can't tell her things, then why did you do this job? The next couple is Alison and Emily. I really want to like these two, and I think they could have worked. It was probably the right choice to have them be together in some sense, but the issue was the way they went about Alison's redemption arc and developing it was also poorly done, that it made me just want to throw the whole thing in the trash and just have her be a villain. And having them end up as a couple was a lot more anticlimactic and disappointing, even though there were points of the show where I was shipping these two so bad. Like, all I wanted was for them to be together. Around season 4 and 5, I was like, I am obsessed. Like, I love them so much. But after a while, I don't know, it just started to bore me, which is a real shame because there was a lot of potential here. So their relationship starts off in obviously a very toxic way of Alison using Emily, and it was kind of so bad that I'm surprised they even ever made it out of that, because the whole thing was basically Alison humiliating Emily over her sexuality, not making her feel good about it whatsoever, kind of using it against her and toying with her feelings, and that's pretty hard to, in fact, it's pretty unrealistic that you would ever be able to move past that. But even later in season 7 and season 6, once Alison becomes a better person, there is still this very weird savior-victim dynamic set up between them, where Emily seems to be the most attracted to Alison when Alison is in need and Emily can step in and save her. And Alison seems to need Emily the most when she's going through something, or she's pregnant and she's upset and she just wants Emily there as like her emotional walking stick. But then when she's doing well and she's thriving, she's off dating Lorenzo, and it's like Emily hasn't even crossed her mind. Out of sight, out of mind. And that's the biggest problem here, because it always made me feel like she kind of settled for Emily, or Emily was her backup, or it just took her way too long to see the potential that was there with Emily. And that doesn't send the best message to the viewers. It sends a message that you should wait for someone to choose you. And Emily was waiting for like 10 years, and I'm just like, how long will it take for you to see Emily's value? She deserves better than to be someone's like second choice. And it's really weird that this whole egg impregnation thing is what brings them back together and what makes Emily completely obsessed with her. Like, I'm here for you, Alison, we're going to be a family, I'm going to stand by you. Like, why are you guys... what? It's really a strange choice. Like, out of all the ways to get a couple together, that wouldn't be the first one that crossed my mind. And I say this because Emily was also obsessed with Sarah when she got her out of, is it Sarah? Shower Harvey. Is it Sarah or Sarah? How have I forgotten this? I've made so many videos about this show. It doesn't even matter. That loser. How have I forgotten her name? I think she's just so awful I blocked it out. But Emily is obsessed with helping Shower Harvey and being there for her because she's very much victim. Oh, I got hit by a car, my leg's cut. Oh, and Emily's like, oh my God, are you okay? Mom, can she stay with us? She's not well. And like fussing over her. And it's a little bit weird. It's a bit weird. And it was the same thing in season 3, episode 11. Paige breaks down and tells Emily about Alison's bullying. And Emily's like, oh my gosh, like I'm even more in love with you now because you're all emotional and crying. And wasn't it the same thing with Talia? Like, Talia was getting upset about something and crying, and Emily was like, it's okay. Like, it's just odd. It's odd. Emily is too good for that. She is always there for everyone, and it would be nice if someone was there for her for once. I don't know when this was, but after the time jump, when Alison and Emily kiss, Alison literally just did it because she was vulnerable and she wasn't sure. And Emily had to say to her, can you please not kiss me again when you're emotional, and actually like do it when you're sure, not just when you need some comforting. And I really like that Emily grew so much in terms of her inner strength, because she's saying, hey, I'm not putting my life on hold for you, and I don't want you to kiss me again until you actually mean it and want it. And maybe Alison did want it. I mean, at the finale, I thought their little babies and the way that they took care of their kids and everything was so cute and wholesome, so I want to like it. And I would say that I like it like 60%, but there were just some great areas there where I feel like it could have been written better. And like, for instance, even Alison's proposal to Emily, it's all talking about what Emily's giving her. You've made me a better woman. I was this bitch and you saw beauty within me. Me. You make me feel good about myself. And she's not really saying like what she's giving to Emily. Like, why did it take so much for Alison to see that and for them to get together? It took her nearly being killed by her husband, losing Charlotte, having a mental breakdown. Why did it take so much for her to finally be like, I want Emily, when Emily had been there for her since day one, like unconditionally besotted with her since they were teenagers? You know, it's just a bit unbalanced. And I know it's just a TV show, but if that was like me personally, I'd just be a little bit bummed. I'd be a bit resentful, like, oh, it took you this long. And it's really ironic to me that Emily in season 7 is trying to tell all of Addison's friends that Addison's bad news and they should stay away from her. But it's like, Addison's a high school bully, she's a teenager, just like Alison was, so apparently Addison will never get better and she doesn't deserve a second chance. But Alison was just the same and she grew a lot and she changed, so why is there this double standard? And there's still that lack of trust in their relationship, even in the finale. I'm not convinced that Emily truly knows that Alison's changed, or if she'll always have that fear in the back of her mind that Alison's gonna hurt her again. Because even in the finale, Alison was like talking to Emily's mom and she was planning proposing, and Emily jumps to the worst case scenario of Alison's planning and plotting something and scheming, and she's so like anxious about it that she's like, Alison, we need to talk about this right now, like what's going on? And I'm like, wow, you still, after all this time, you've been through so much together, you still don't trust her. You don't trust that maybe she's planning an exciting surprise for you because she loves you. If just the smallest thing can make you freak out like that, do you really trust your partner? What forced them to get together? It wasn't them saying, I want to be with you. It was, we're kind of forced into close proximity because of this whole you getting impregnated with my eggs thing. And so it's this forced partnership. I don't like that. I find that creepy and gross and weird, and also really kind of an insensitive way to portray this topic. Alison was also really like jealous when she saw Paige in season 7, and even though she'd apologized for bullying Paige, she said sorry for bullying Paige, she's doing the same thing, just being patronizing, trying to bring Paige down in this really bitchy, petty way that shows that she hasn't changed at all, because she's just being a child, behaving like a 14-year-old again, all because she's annoyed and feels like Paige is a threat to her and Emily's relationship. She's insulting Paige in front of other professionals, and I'm like, wow, really classy, Alison. You know, I can truly see that you've become a better person. During that dinner scene in season 6B, you can see she still has that bitchy side of her, that kind of snarky, aggressive tone, like the way that she was interacting with Hannah at one point when she was mad at her. Like, you can see this nasty streak there that she can switch on at any moment. And when she wanted to get Charlotte out of being institutionalized and bring her home, she's happy to basically throw the liars under the bus and be like, hey, can you testify for me to help me? Like, I know that I wasn't there and this woman kidnapped you and held you hostage in a freaking dollhouse. I don't know what kind of abuse you endured. Even we as the audience don't know. We just heard screaming. But please help me get her out because she's family, and kind of like makes them feel obligated, obviously, or they'll feel bad and they'll lose her friendship. I'm surprised that they even spoke to her after that, because there is no reason as to why they should want their tormentor to be freed. And I'm glad that Aria was the only one to have common sense and be like, sorry, like, I'm not okay with this. Like, I find this weird. Another thing I don't like is the age gap between the actors. When they were first filming, Shay and Sasha were very different ages. Sasha was still a minor. Shay was like 21, and to have them kiss, even just a peck, it's weird. It's not really needed. But also the issue is that it comes across that it's uncomfortable for them. And even later on in season 7, to me at least, Sasha looks uncomfortable during the sex scenes, so that just like makes it's not even like an issue, but it's just awkward to watch because you're like, ugh. And luckily Shay Mitchell isn't a creep, but like, I don't care. By the end of the show, were Alison and Emily that bad? No, of course not. I mean, Aria and Ezra are way worse, and I'm happy that they're happy at the end of the show, but I just feel like they could have done so much better with it. And I'm not saying like, oh, Alison's unforgivable and she didn't deserve like to be cut any slack, to be given any forgiveness, because she went through a lot and people often underestimate that. Like, she was literally groomed by Wilden at the age of like 14, had the same thing with Ezra, and then buried alive by her own mum and forced to go on the run for 2 years because she's being stalked. She's sent to prison for a crime she didn't commit. She's framed. The girls had literally framed her. She ends up in jail. She hadn't done anything wrong. It was incredibly unfair. And that's a lot for someone of her age to go through. Like, that's really shit. And the girls were very quick to turn on her as well and to not believe her. Even though they heard her story in New York and heard all these things she went through, it was very easy for them to kind of switch up on her. So I'm not saying that Emily was like a saint either, but I'm just saying it's complicated and there's quite a lot to dissect here. And it's not just her, it's other relationships too. Like, Maya wasn't the best developed character. Like, she was a good girlfriend, but sometimes it seemed like she wasn't really that into Emily. When she went to True North, she didn't really bother to end things properly with Emily or call her. And at other points it was fine, and Maya was super sweet and loving and affectionate and really like gentle with Emily, but there was still this sense that I had that none of Emily's relationships were really given the same amount of time or attention or development, and so they always lacked in some ways, even the good ones, because they were so short-lived. And now Aria and Ezra, I've made a whole video about these guys, which I'll link in the description, so you can check that out if that's up your alley, explaining how this man like groomed her and how we as an audience were manipulated by this relationship. But even if you take out the teacher-student age gap, all that, it still wasn't a good relationship. This man lied to her about his family. He lied to her about who he was. She kissed his brother and never told him. It was toxic AF. It was so unhealthy. He made a divide between her and her parents. So she would go out to see him, pretending to her parents she was hanging out with her childhood friend Holden, but like going behind her parents' back to see Ezra. And it literally nearly destroyed her family, like, because it was so traumatic for them to find this out. Even in the finale and in the end of the show, look how she reacts when she finds out that her and Ezra can't have their own biological children. She thinks she can't tell him. And then when he doesn't show up at the wedding, instead of her being like, oh my God, what's happened to him? She's like, oh my God, he bailed on me. He didn't even want to show up. That's how low you think of him. Then the whole other ballgame is we find out he was stalking her for years to write a book for his own personal gain. He loves, one of you guys commented this a while ago, but he loves writing books about his exes and their trauma. And I love that he was going to do the same thing for Nicole and planning that. Like, you just love it when your exes suffer so you can make money off of it. Like, I'm sorry, that's so disgusting. Once she found out that he was only dating her initially to write a book, it should have been the end of the relationship altogether. So overall, were the relationships in the show like bad and awful and the worst I've seen? No, but clearly there's a lot here to analyze with stuff that I did overlook, even though there were so many positives and so many like amazing scenes that I will treasure forever. Some of the characters that weren't very healthy had too much screen time. For example, Paige, I never liked her relationship with Emily, and I could never understand why she kept coming back when frankly no one wanted her there. And her obsession with Emily came across as very controlling and overbearing as opposed to romantic. There were many red flags there. And I'm not just talking about how her relationship with Emily started with her competing with her and bullying her. I mean, even later on when they were together, she came across as kind of creepy. For example, in season 7, when Alison and Emily had like fallen asleep together and Emily was going to have breakfast with her because Alison was a bit vulnerable. She wanted to take care of her because she can do what she wants, right? It's her business. And Paige is all mad at her like, oh my God, Alison's still got such a grip on you. You know, one thing I cannot stand, I realize this the older I get, is unsolicited criticism. Like when you didn't ask for it. Like, did I ask you for feedback on my clothes or who I'm friends with? No. Unless Emily had said to her, hey, Paige, what's your take on me spending so much time in Alison? I would really like to hear your input. You don't say anything. Like, it is so rude. Emily didn't do the same to her, being like, Paige, I have a bone to pick. Like, no. So overall, my favorite couple in the show was probably Haleb and Hannah, with Spencer and Toby at a close second. And all the relationships in general are kind of the least important part of this show, so it's actually not really that relevant. Now, I have been covering Pretty Little Lies on my Patreon if you want to check it out. We've got 50 members now, so thank you everyone. I'm really excited about that. And I've got another really big video coming next week about this show as a way to kind of bring this series to a close. It's been one that's been requested. There's a lot of research that's gone into it. I don't even want to say it. I'm so excited, but you guys are going to love it. So stay tuned for that, and I will see you next week. Bye guys.